What's up, YouTube? Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. It is June the 9th, coming up on the midpoint of the year. We're almost there. We are almost there. We're going to go ahead and call this the midpoint. Not quite, but almost the midpoint, because we're almost there. Big what's up, everybody. I don't know about y'all, but I mean, is it just not exciting? We're in June. We actually got some limited temperatures going on outside. I mean, it's just, beautiful. With the storm, the grass turned green after that ridiculous amount of sulfentrazone I sprayed on it, which was not even that ridiculous, but considering we had no rain, it just put it all to the brown zone. Took it all to the brown zone. We got a big orange. What's up, Phil Cagle? So, for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, I'm going to tell you a little bit how this goes. This is the Grass Factor Weekly Lawn and Garden Show. This is an open format, meaning you ask the questions, I provide the answers. My area of expertise is turfgrass management. I have more experience than I do brains when it comes to turfgrass management, so I like to answer questions in and around that. Outside of that, I do enjoy talking a little bit about some woody ornamentals and some plants. I'm not too much the farmer. I'm not great at growing crops. If I can't put it in a 5-gallon bucket and collect peppers off of it, I'm probably not good enough to grow it. But, that being said, if we want to talk about some grass, I could talk about grass all day, every day. That's what I do. So, everybody, we talked about what we do. We talk about how we're going to do it. Now, let's do what I call my favorite part of the show. We're coming in 5 minutes, or this is 5 minutes before 9 o'clock, and we're already going to start the roll call. So real quick, I'm going to jump over to everybody over here in the chat and give a big what's up to the first early tuner inners, because, man, I tell you what, we're early today, gentlemen. We are early. We are doing big things on the early side of this, and that is something to be proud of. I'm getting everything. It's still a little bit caught up on my end, but I think we are getting it there. All right. So, hop over to the chat and see who's doing what. We got a big what's going on here, Terry Finch, but look who was first. Matt Anderson. My old boy down in originally from Louisiana, who's no longer in Louisiana. Zooming in with the epic first. Congratulations, sir. You are indeed first. Terry Finch, how are you, good sir? Ty P already needs to get his Bermuda out of his St. Augustine. I mentioned atrazine and ethylfumicate, but even then, it's going to be extremely difficult, time-consuming, and costly. So your better bet may be just to use a sod cutter, cut it out, and patch it back in with some fresh St. Augustine sod. I believe the lawn care nut calls that grass surgery. You do a little bit of surgery. Connor Ward is in the shows. The Lawn Rebel. Not a Lawn Rebel, the Lawn Rebel. That's what I'm talking about. Wayne SR was in here. What's up, Big Wayne? Lambert, my favorite attorney, hanging out in there. I think we had a good time over in the Discord last night. We were talking till 1 o'clock in the morning about Neil Young and sad songs and Ryan Nor's unreleased music. It was a lot of fun, though. I think everybody wanted to make sure I was going to be here today, but I am. I'm alive and well. Richard Bryan, how are you doing, good sir? Glad you are here. Future former lawn noob, Mr. Canada. I don't know why I went over the top with that, but I did. What is going on? Canadia Creus. Matt, I will stay safe. You know, it's already kind of quieting it up around here, so I'd say the worst of it is over. That's what I'm talking about. Tall Fescue Junkie is in the shows. Striper Man. Striper Man. Striper Man. I think it was supposed to be a rendition of Spider-Man. It just didn't work out too well. Sean Gregory's got liquid gold over there. Share some with the crowd, man. We need all kinds. All right, we'll keep going on down here. Velvet Hammer, dropping the hammer. We got Cole Hurley in the house. What are you doing, Big Cole? Welcome aboard the Soul Train. I'm glad you are here. Mr. Waddell, how are you, good sir? Colonel Corn says yeast roll call. That's what I'm talking about. Get you some munchies in with your roll call. Big fan. RVA Lawn Love, how are you, good sir? Mr. Cagle, we got VOLS. Go, Vols, go. Shouldn't have done that either. Grace Ortiz, how are you? Glad you're here. Dan Espinosa. Dan, the man. Hide up in here. Chris Ward. Mr. Karate Chris in the house. TJ Owens, how are you, big sir? Brett Grasscapade says he hears that something juice is the best fertilizer in 20 years. Is this true? I am not the man to answer that, but I will say this. No. There's nothing about it that's anything different than anything else that's out on the market. So how you could quantify that as being the best fertilizer in 20 years would be that it would have to have something, a different mode of action, a different something, a different release pattern, different release curve than what's already been on the market for 20 years. But just combining a little bit of everything, no, it's not. Sorry. Bradley Levine, cool season grass. We have had, we're going to jump right into the questions. Cool season grass. We've had a lot of rain and grass is seeding already. 2.5 to 3 inches high is the seeding of the grass. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Seeding of cool season grasses is completely normal. If you could prevent it, that's great because a lot of carbohydrates go into the production of seed heads. But if you can't, don't sweat it. It's okay. It's a natural process. Your soil temperatures are starting to get up. I just spit all over the place. I don't know how that happened. That was disgusting. But as your soil temperatures begin to creep up and you cross that threshold where the plant's starting to be like, uh-oh, it's going to get hot, the initial stress response is going to be go to seed, reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. So it's just a natural plant process. That's what I'm saying. We got Mr. Elms, Officer Elms in the house. How are you, good sir? Stay safe out there. Our local law enforcement officer. We got Chandler Hall. How are you, good sir? Tyler Boston. How are you? Steve Williams. Just down the road. Calhoun. Jay Wyrick. How are you, good sir? The lawn stripes. I stay away from the brown zone. Yes, you should, sir. Jerry Bob Hayes. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Telly Coleman is here all the way over from Vegas. Just out there gambling away all of Nashville. Are you, Telly? I don't know why I said that. I know you're not. The Lawn Care Addicts, how are you? Sammy Ayala. Hey, man, glad you're here. Jeremy Swatkins, Chris Lucky, Chris Elms, Gary Evans, Clark Van Meter, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions. So, like I said, this is how this works. If you ask questions in the chat, I will answer them as I get to them. Bear with me. It may take me a minute to get to your chat because I go in the order in which they're received. So feel free, load up the chat. I will get to them eventually. And if I skip over your question, feel free to ask again. So we're going to get going here with Clark Van Meter. What cool season pre-emergent would you rotate with Pro-Diamine and how would you rotate it? Okay, interesting you asked this because I did a whole video about pre-emergence and rotating with pre-emergence. And basically what I said is that with cool season grass, you are effectively screwed. There's not a whole lot you can rotate with. So your better bet would be combining modes of actions when you do apply. So let's see here. I am going to look this up. The grass factor pre-emergence. I don't know if I made this into a video or not. Oh yeah, I did. I did make this into a video, so I'm going to throw this into the chat here, so that way you can go check it out, Clark. And I give specific examples of rotation for cool season grasses. What rates do you run on your homemade headway for curative? Do you run full rate on both prop and azoxy, or just one or the other? So typically JH as a curative, and depending on the level of outbreak, I may run 24 and 24. So typically I would run the 41.8% propiconazole. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that out of the way. But I would, if I got just a little bit, I may go 24 and 24. If it's eat up and it's got really developed brown patch, then I'm going to run 32 and 32, which would be the full rate of both. I hope that answers your question. Reb D in the building. Oh, look who's here. The Lawn Tools is here. How are you, good sir? Polo Fields in the house, Ken Harbison says. I overseeded with Kentucky Bluegrass 3 years ago, and it's now just starting to show. Is that reasonable? Yeah, that's reasonable. It's just getting to that point in its life where that's how it adapts to stress. So perfectly normal. Hola! Looking forward to getting some 818 and Carbon X down soon. Well, it's going to be coming out to you soon, so you should be all good on that one. It should be heading out on Monday, I believe. It's already set up. It's in the system. The background Bermuda's looking sweet. Yeah, that was June of last year. My Bermuda June of last year. It was doing a whole lot better, but at the same time, my front yard was underwater for a couple of weeks. I mean, my backyard was underwater for a couple of weeks when we had that torrential downpour in January. It was funny. I came back from Florida and I had water all the way up underneath my house. Like I was flooded, for real, like flooded. Couldn't come into my driveway flooded. It was that was something else. The creek next to me is a little overspillway, and it was nasty. Anyway, I knew it wasn't going to come out of dormancy great after that because it's happened before in the past, and it got a little squirrely when it did that. So I had the same idea that it wasn't going to do well after that, and it didn't. It hasn't done great, but it's actually starting to look really good as of about this week. So I'm getting happy with that. Flip Flop Cowboy says, Glenn Stevens, my mama's here. What's going on, Mom? Gigi Turf, what's up? Shane Brady. Y'all think Irish Spring or Lever 2000 is the best grass product? Oh, that's you, Turf Man. Expecting rain over the next couple of days. Should I hold off on Dethatch app until the chance of rain passes by? If you've got it over the next couple of days, but you got a little clear window, go ahead and apply it. As long as you have your temperatures there. If it rains within the next day or two, that's perfect. That's ideally what you want to have happen. What is the efficacy of Carbon X when applied to a yard treated with wetting agent? That's a great question, Real Dad, and I don't know the answer to that. And so I'll kind of clue everybody into the research we're going to be doing. So we had a customer that put down Carbon X in Oklahoma on Bermuda grass, and he said he was not getting any results. And if anybody's seen like Alan's video where he applied Carbon X, I mean, that's pretty unadulterated. Pete's done a video show where he applied it. We've applied it. Obviously, there's hundreds of professional applicators that have applied it, and we typically know what to expect with an application. So to hear that it didn't work, we were really concerned. And so anyway, we're bringing that material back in to test. One, we want to check the analysis, make sure no chemical reaction or off-gassing happened inside the bag. And then beyond that, the other thing too is that we're actually going to apply it and see what happens. And we're also going to try and recreate the problem, because my dad taught me if you can recreate the problem, you can solve the problem. So that's going to be our standpoint. And one of the things we looked at was the series of applications that took place leading up to the application of Carbon X. So it was an application of wetting agent, 1 inch of rain, an application of Carbon X, followed by 7 inches of rain, followed by an application of Carbon X, followed by 3 inches of rain over a 3-week period. And so we're wondering if it didn't contribute to that issue like I talked about with Ryan Knorr, where his soil had become so super saturated that all of the fertilizer that went into solution that dissolved into the water that ultimately would be taken up by the roots, but it was so super saturated, it was not going to be taken up. So therefore you lost to leaching or volatilization or runoff. So anyway, it's just kind of a thought process we're having right now. And, we're having to chart, all the historical weather data and whatnot too, to be able to give an accurate recreation of the problem to ultimately come up with a solution to it as well. I hope that answers a question, Mike. Hey, Matt, how has the melatonin experiment been going? So far, not good. Like, really unimpressive, uneventful. But the guys over on the lawn forum kind of gave me some ideas on increasing solubility. So we're going to continue the test there once we increase solubility. So we'll be doing a little more work with some ethanol. Let's see. Gene Ducati Clo, how are you, good sir? Melvin Gunner from over in Olive Branch, Mississippi. How are you, good sir? I'm glad you're here. Blue Pit planted his Princess 77 10 or so days ago. Grass coming in, put 1 pound per 1,000 of Scotch starter with weed preventer, but still full of weeds. Let it be or do something about it. Can't walk on it. Soil too soft. if you can't walk on it because the soil's too soft, just leave it alone for a little bit. Let that Bermuda come in and get a little meat to it. Yeah, it'll be weedy, but let me tell you, it's a hell of a lot easier to kill weeds in Bermuda grass than it is any other turf type. So the options are yours. Now, it's not going to make it cheap, but you've got a wide variety of options to attack the weeds you see in your Bermuda grass. Chris Wells says, any options to prevent little barley in tall fescue, fall seeding, or to kill it post-emergence in early spring in the transition zone? Options in preventing it? Not really, Chris. And I will say that Spectacle and Simazine and Atrazine in the fall would be your best bet, but you cannot run those on tall fescue. So, unfortunately, you're kind of left in a position there where you are not in a situation where you could apply something preventatively for that. What you may be able to do is go out with like a perfectly timed Pylex application or a perfectly timed mesotrione application. That may help. And it may have to be something like Pylex plus Dismiss. In terms of post-emergent in the spring, I would say probably Pylex, Tenacity, Dismiss, Tenacity, Carfentrazone, or Carfentrazone and Sulfentrazone. I think you're going to have to get pretty creative with it. And because, you used to back in Memphis, everything was dormant. We just spray it with Roundup, right? Clean it all up. Or if it was later in the year, metsulfuron methyl actually worked on it fairly well too. Obviously, we can't run those post-emergence on fescue, so it's going to take a little bit of experimentation. I would start with Pylex, though. And if Pylex doesn't work, I would move over to fluazafop. And if that doesn't work, I would move over to phenoxaprop. And if that doesn't work, I would start combining the two. So I would take Pylex and fluazafop, or Pylex and phenoxaprop, and make your applications that way. Is it more advantageous to run high monthly rates of humic, aerate, microgreen, RGS? I've been running low rates only because of cost. No, because at some point you're going to hit a diminishing point of return. So, spoon feeding it out there is not going to be a bad thing. It just depends on how much money you want to spend on it. Because after a certain point of running it, like you're no longer going to get the bang for your buck out of it, so to speak. So it's better to stay probably on the lower end of the spectrum if you want to make frequent applications. With summer a week away, is it too late for me to seed bare spots? It depends on where you are. If I had to guess, I would say yes. If you are seeding Bermuda grass or any of the warm season grasses, no, you're in peak season to get down your seed. What is the average price for a Bermuda sod pallet? Approximately 500 square feet. Man, it's going to range. I'm telling you right now, it used to be like, I can remember it being as cheap as $75 a pallet. Then I remember it being $118 a pallet. Then I remember it being $218 a pallet. I've seen it $250 a pallet. And some of the newer hybrid varieties I've seen up in $350 to $400. So it's going to be all over the map depending on your variety. Question, do cheater stripes count? Absolutely. It may not on a golf course or anywhere else in the world, but hey, it's all in the eye of the beholder. It's all about perception, right? So if you do cheater stripes to get that perception and it looks good from my angle, you win. Absolutely, they count. Absolutely. Hey, Matt, do I need to get a soil test in order for me to apply rapid lime, or should I just apply small amounts every year due to excessive rain? Kent, just because you're having rain doesn't mean that's going to acidify the soil. You may have a soil structure that has lots of oxide content that may break down over time and acidify the soil. So it may have nothing to do with your excessive rainfall. So absolutely, I would perform a soil test before choosing to apply lime or sulfur, elemental sulfur, to do anything that has to do with adjusting a pH. Otherwise, you could put yourself into a giant pickle. Just saying. What is the best for sedges for warm turf? I've used Sedgehammer, but I'm still seeing nut sedge survive. St. Augustine Provista turf. Sedgehammer is going to leave some behind, so your best bet would probably be either Certainty or Solero. And an even better best bet than that would be combining Solero plus Certainty. I did a video all about nut sedges that would probably answer any of the questions you have regarding that, and not just killing nut sedge, but killing it and keeping it gone. So if I were you, I would check out this video. Well, I can't even find it. I can't find it. Let me see if I can do this. Man, I've done quite a few videos on nutsedge, but of course I can't find the presentation I did, where I did a full presentation with all kinds of like data points. Oh look, here we go. Here it is. I found it. So at Sean Gregory, there you go. Kevin Vasco, I don't think it's advisable to run high rates of kelp based on products as it can be toxic to the grass. Root pruning. Yeah, that's a good point there, Kevin. So a lot of people don't know that, is that kelp in general is very high in growth hormones. It's going to contain pretty decent amounts of cytokinins and auxins. And so at the rate at which they're typically applied from a kelp-based product, it's to stimulate the development through that balance of the auxins and the cytokinins, root and shoot development. However, if you exceed that, then typically what will happen is those auxins and cytokinins get misdirected, and so you can send energy that would go towards developing the root and then send it elsewhere in the plant and ultimately lessen the root. But I mean, we're talking extremely high rates to do that, so just stay within label rates and typically you're good to go. Need to fill in about 250 square feet of St. Augustine where a fire pit and tree used to be. Should I pull plugs from around the yard or by side and cut it up? What would be the fastest to fill in? Brian, it's completely your preference. Plugs or cut up sod. Now, if you sod the whole thing, obviously that's the fastest way to fill it in because it's instant grass. If you plug it in, it doesn't matter if you get your plugs from sod or you get plugs from your yard. It's all going to fill in about the same. Was on vacation and grass was overgrown. Had the kids playing out back on the grass. Now it appears almost white in the area they were walking. Have had pretty warm days. Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass. Any idea? Yeah, it's probably just damage from where they were walking on it. So, and it also could be this too. There's something called Escotcha leaf blight, and Escotcha leaf blight typically happens because of the weight of mower tires. When grass is grown up too tall, you mow over it, it'll actually crunch the grass over, and so the top part of the lawn will it'll die off in the run of the tires. And they call it a Scotch leaf blight because there is some sort of disease present in there that causes it to happen. But it's not long term, and it just comes out really quickly. It'll just grow out on its own. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. Just continue watering, mowing like normal, and it should recover just fine. Hey, get your bedtime on there, Chris. Put down iron granular app and then got a heavy rain show unexpectedly. Do you think I need to reapply, or will enough remain to bring dark green to my fescue lawn? I don't know, Joel. I have no idea. I don't know what your soil saturation level was prior to getting the rain. I don't know what it was after the rain. I don't know how heavy the rain fell. I mean, because you may have gotten 2 inches of rain, but it may have been 2 inches of rain over 48 hours, or you may have gotten 2 inches of rain in 15 minutes. So I can't answer that. What I would do is wait 2 weeks, see what you see, and if it doesn't, then apply it again. We jumped down. Let me jump back up here. Okay. Should liquid fungicides be watered in to get down to the crown of the plant where the fungus resides, or let dry on the leaf tissue? JH, there are very few fungicides that need to be watered in, quote unquote, immediately. So there are some systemic products on the market your strobilurins can handle being watered in because they're going to have two modes of action. They'll be taken up through the root system, distributed throughout the plant, and it can be taken in foliarly to act on the disease in the crown. Typically, all fungicides are going to be foliar. So yes, you want them to reside on the leaf tissue, dry there, and then you can do any kind of watering as normal. Like Daconil. I remember when Daconil came out with the weather stick, and I think it was like 1 hour rain fast, something like that. So yes, ideally, no, you don't need to water it in to get it to the crown of the plant. Other than 1801 Green Punch, any other recommendations on liquid fert? Yeah, Patrick, just go get a bag of urea and dissolve it in water. Or go get a bag of ammonium sulfate and dissolve it in water. And ta-da, you've got liquid fert. You can do the same thing with potash too. You can go get a bag of 0050 sulfate of potash and, put a pound in a gallon of water and, stir, mix, and voila, you've got liquid fert all day long. Gene DeClos, hey Matt, if ammonium sulfate is used in glyphosate to enhance efficacy of the glyphosate by bonding to the calcium and magnesium in the water mix, wouldn't it make ammonium sulfate less soluble for the turfgrass uptake? Yes, because when you're applying it, if you look at the rate of ammonium sulfate that goes into glyphosate, I mean, we're talking very small amounts. So you're not using that ammonium sulfate to improve the quality of your grass, right? Less soluble for turfgrass uptake. Yeah. So, well, not necessarily. Just because it's bound to calcium and magnesium doesn't mean that the turfgrass isn't going to take it up, because it's not like turning it into an oxide form, which would make it less soluble. I don't know. I don't think so. And more so, even as the ammonium sulfate does go into solution, you tend to get a greasy texture to it, which would act more like a surfactant. But I think the big thing there would be it doesn't matter because it's not enough of it going in there. So if you use the ammonium sulfate to tie up the calcium and magnesium, you've got the glyphosate left over to do the job that it was intended to do. So you don't really have to worry about it. I think that's one of those times where I think we're overthinking it, Gene. I think we're overthinking it. Do you always scout before a heavy rain? I don't. I think Mike does, though. I was reading the label for certainty today and started thinking about the rain fastness, which is 2 hours. How does rain fastness work? Will it not go back into solution, i.e. rainwater? Also, glad you made it to the show. Thanks. That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure how rain fastness does work. But no, I doubt it's really going to go back into solution well, it does. It probably will go back into solution. But the active ingredient that's contained in the material that is applied to the leaf is probably taken up in that time frame. So whatever additives they add to that certainty during the formulation process is designed for, in that 2 hours, the plant is going to take up as much of that herbicide as it's going to take. And then the plant's done. The rest of it is just waste. So I would say that's how rain fastness works. It's going to take up as much as it possibly can in that amount of time, and then it's done. And typically it'll be the rate that's suggested applied is how much that plant will take up in 2 hours. Is T-Zone a good product to use to kill weeds? Sure. It's triclopyr, sulfentrazone, some 2,4-D, some dicamba. Yeah, I mean, that's a good broadleaf weed control. It does not work on sedges. Do not let anybody fool you. Do not spray that on sedges thinking it's going to kill them. It's not. Transition zone in Kansas just ran full rate of 41.8 ppz. Can I plan to run just the low rate of ppz and azoxy in July? What fungicide would you recommend for August? This was my 4 preventative program lawns. Yeah, if you started out with a full rate of ppz, yeah, you could go. Typically, since you're doing 2 modes of actions like that, I would just run just that mix straight all 4 apps, right? Because that's going to be your best bet. You got 2 modes of action. And so that's going to cut down on your potential for disease resistance, and it's a strobilurin and a DMI, and you don't really have a whole lot of other options other than those 2 to give you 28-day control. So I would just run low rate of PPZ, low rate of azoxy, all 4 apps. Matt, have you ever broadcasted certainty in Bermuda grass for control of nutsedge, tall fescue, and Poa annua? If not, do you think it's a reasonable approach to knocking out these weeds in Bermuda? Zach Rodriguez, yes, absolutely I have. And yes, it's absolutely reasonable. Johnny Fescue, growing in common Bermuda. Primo recommended on common Bermuda or no? Have used on hybrid Bermuda, but never common. Yes, Johnny Fescue, absolutely on common Bermuda. My backyard that you see in this picture right here behind me is common Bermuda, and I grew this in with Primo, with T-Nex is what I used to grow this in. So this was a couple weeks after a T-Nex app, and it was an ultra low rate. I'm going to say I put it down at like 12 ounces per acre, maybe even less. A T-Nex app, and I can't remember what else I applied, but it was something else I threw in while I was spraying it with my Permagreen. And yeah, so it was 2 weeks after application. It looked great. That thing grew in perfect. Matthew, it doesn't. So let's not talk about Bermuda that way. I'm just kidding. So try Pilex or Tenacity in early spring for the little barley. Yes, Chris, I definitely would. Melvin, I seen you had fireweed in your back lawn. Did you use Spectacle in the fall? I've noticed using Spectacle in the fall. I have no burnweed in the spring. No, Melvin, I did not use Spectacle. I have yet to play with much Spectacle. Once I moved to East Tennessee, there wasn't really a huge need for it just because of the lack of Bermuda that I maintain. But I'm one of the few people here that has a Bermuda lawn, and so it's hard to even find. I can't even, none of the places around here carry Spectacle. I would have to go probably out of state. I'd probably have to go to Georgia or Chattanooga in order to even buy it. Do you have any advice for Jonathan Grass? I think my client got hit with saltburn, and we got nasty dead patches in her lawn. Man, I have no idea. If you got hit with saltburn, sodium displacement through gypsum is one of the old things. I've been reading more and more research, though, that says that it does okay on sodium displacement, and it isn't all that great. But, yeah, I really don't have any advice there. Yeah, Sean, I do, man. I'm fighting sickness again. Did you notice the grass in Adventures Endgame? No, I did not. Do I need a drink? Do I need a drink that bad? Is my wife around? I may ask her if she can bring me something, because I do not believe I have anything. But I'm going to go ahead and text her real quick. This is live. I'm going to text my wife and ask for a drink. Hey, baby. I've got a dry throat. Can you bring me some water? ? I live my life very publicly. Very publicly. How will Certainty herbicide affect Kentucky and fine fescue? It will kill it, John. It will definitely kill it. Do not spray it on that. It used to be labeled for Kentucky bluegrass, but they had to take it off because Certainty kept killing Kentucky bluegrass. Provista St. Aug, use Roundup. Yep, just do not use Roundup on sedges. Roundup on sedges does not work. And you would have to run ultra high rates. I have a half tall fescue, half perennial rye lawn, and don't really like the look of the wide blades of the tall fescue. Is there any way to get rid of the fescue without a renovation? No, sir. You would have to renovate it. Do you have any thoughts on silicon fert? Have you ever used? Yeah, so typically that's used in golf, and it's used to give the grass more rigidity. It's just going to be harder. Oh. Thank you. To the rescue. That's gold. So yeah, if you are running into a situation where, say, you're getting an excessive amount of rain and the grass is laid over and it's really not having an easy time to stand up, then yeah, I would say you try experimenting with silicone. If you're not running into that, or you're regulating your turf, you may want to be careful with it because you can make it really hard. But yes, you definitely can use it. I don't think it's going to be a big game changer, though. Thank you, Johnny Fescue. Do you recommend sodding hybrid Bermuda or seeding? I always recommend sodding. You can seed if you want, but vegetative grow-ins are widely more successful than seed jobs. For July, my tank mix, I'm planning imidacloprid for dethatch iron fungicide. Any problems with that? My only issue would be combining the dethatch with iron. Be careful, because there is live bacteria in the dethatch, and it can ammonianize pretty good. So just be careful. I would test some areas with the dethatch and iron on a hot day and monitor for tip burn and adjust your rates based on what you see. But other than that, no, you're good to go. Papa and Nana's Lawn Care says, any thoughts on using fulvic acid or anything else to add to herbicide mix to reduce herbicide rate required? Here's the thing. People will advertise that, Papa and Nana's, but in reality, no. Until there's more sound data coming out about doing that, because let me tell you, the big issue we're about to face is herbicide resistance. And I'll tell you what's going to be the number one contributor. What is the number one contributor is going out at reduced rates to save money and not killing weeds. Leaving behind weeds is what's leading to herbicide resistance. So If there's ever a time to stop reducing rates, it's now. Spray a weed to kill it. That's it. Be done with it. Otherwise, we're going to continue to breed these super weeds that have no level of control that we're just going to have to deal with. First time listener. Hey, thanks, Jose Martinez. I'm glad you're here, sir. Glad you're here. Please mention that my Yukon looks better than Telly Coleman's. You heard it, Telly. Hey, Matt, when leveling my Zorro Zorja... Oh, we jumped down. Zorro Zorja with sand peat moss, do I need to keep blades peeking through? Yes, definitely. When you're dealing with Zorja, I would keep it peeking through. I do remember you talking about rolling your own T-zone. Wait, yes, roll your own T-zone is a much better way to go because you have full flexibility over your triclopyr rate and flexibility over your sulfentrazone rate. So, yes, that would be my preference with T-zone. Do you water your lawn? And if so, what is your watering schedule? No, I do not water my lawn. In fact, I started to the other day because I was scared we were not going to get rain. And so I bought 300 feet of hose and some Orbit sprinklers, and I ran it for about 2 hours, and I felt stupid. But no, I grew in my whole front yard with fescue, and I never put water to it once. And in the picture you see here, there's been no water applied to that ever either. But if I did have an irrigation system, I tell you how I would have it set right now is I would have it set to come on. And this is given my area where I am. I would guess probably once a week for about an hour 45 per rotor zone. Any pop-up zones would be somewhere closer to around 45 minutes. And I would only have it run once a week. And I would change which day of the week it runs. So I would only run it at the instance of stress, not on a set schedule. I'll tell you right now, I'm the person that does not like set schedules for irrigation systems. I would much rather have complete control over it and turn it on when it needs water instead of just watering for the sake of watering. Any post-emergent label for tall fescue in cool season turf? No, there's not. If you have tall fescue and cool season turf, you got to renovate it. I live in Louisville. My neighbor has Bermuda in her entire front yard. She wants to renovate and apply tall fescue. How can I help her, and when should she get started? Ken, there are lots of videos out there for renovating lawns. Pete Denny has done just a ton of them where he comes in and just takes it down to the ground. Probably what I would do, Ken, is I would hop over to the lawnforum.com. At thelawnforum.com, these guys are doing all kinds of renovations all over the place and are going from zero to hero just as quick as they possibly can. So I recommend checking that out. So, should you use a surfactant with Q4 Plus? No, you should not use a surfactant with Q4 Plus unless you want to injure the turf grass you're spraying. If you're perfectly okay with that, you can. But it's entirely up to you. I'm not a big fan of Q4 Plus because it's a broadleaf herbicide that sucks at killing grassy weeds. But they tout it as a grassy weed herbicide. It sucks on nutsedge and it's terrible on crabgrass. If it works for you on crabgrass, great. Yeah, I don't know. If it were me, I would roll my own and I would leave the three-way out of it. So anyway, that's just my opinion. I don't know. Where is Ray tonight? I have not heard from him. Matt needs Tito's. I do not. That is. And that I think we got those on Amazon, something like that. First app we use T-Zone for clover. What would you recommend for follow-up app to target clover in cool season? Papa and Nanas, I did a whole video about broadleaf weed control. One of them that they specifically talked about in this guide this is university trial data for clover. And actually, I've got it pulled up right here to the right time. And the highest efficacy was something that contained fluroxapyr on clover. So you use T-Zone for the first one. If you need to go back and hit something, I would use something that contained fluroxapyr. Infested with white and pink clover by Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass seeded 2 years ago. It has shrugged off herbicide bought at Home Depot that was labeled for clover. Any suggestions? Yes, fluroxapyr. Something that contains fluroxapyr. That's right, Mom. Asami's the hero. Bringing me the cold water to get through the show. Can she bring you a snack? Nachos. I don't know. Here in the area of Oregon where I live, it's been 90 for a few weeks, then dropped to 65 this past Friday, Saturday. Now back up to 104 on Tuesday, Wednesday. How does grass react to extreme fluctuations? Miserably. It does not particularly care for it. So Tracker, a lot of times what you'll see happen is that it'll go summer dormant. And it's not because of any, like a lack of water or anything like that. It's just purely it wants to stop growing because it can't handle the crazy fluctuations or just the extremes on the high end. So cool season grasses, the limit on those is somewhere around 85 degrees. Anything over 85 degrees, the plant starts to shut down. It doesn't want to grow anymore. It wants to go into pure survival mode and be done. So you start talking about getting to 90 and then talking to get to 104, it's really going to shut down and brown up. And so you can try and cool it all you want to get it to come back green, but it's probably the worst thing you could do for the grass. It's just let it go and let it be heat dormant. I'm getting dead patches in the footprint of the gable of my house. It's a light color, and I feel the reflection is causing more heat to the area. What can I do? Do something to deflect the heat. Yes, and that is perfectly normal for that to happen, William. I've seen it outside of windows, even reflecting off neighbors' windows into my yards. So, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is prevent that reflection from taking place. Put up something that's anti-reflective. Here in Michigan, I have perennial Ryan Kentucky bluegrass getting a ton of rain in the spring and heat. Notice the fungus in the lawn. What should I put on it? It depends on your fungus, Ken. If it's dollar spot, you want to apply something labeled for dollar spot, like like your Cleary's 3336 or propiconazole. If it is brown patch, or if it's brown patch, you probably want to use like azoxystrobin and propiconazole. If it's Pythium, you probably want to put down mefenoxam or something like that. You need to reach out my doctor for that dry throat. He goes by. It's funny, Ducati DeClo. I can just leave the iron out then. Wasn't sure on the fungicide with the imidacloprid needing watered in. Yeah. And again, I would just test it, Chris, because you may be able to throw the iron in, and you'd be fine. So I'd just test it first. Just test it. If you have hot spots on the lawn and it's not from sprinkler coverage, can I use aerate on those areas above regular scheduled apps? Yeah, you totally could. Yeah, you definitely can. If you've got those hot spots there, then you certainly can. And there's talk coming up on the lawn forum that I've seen here where we're talking about aerate and the lipids that are naturally in humic substances plus the KOH that's in the aerate. It starts to form like a version of a soap, which will have surfactant-like qualities, which will hold moisture in the root zone, like a baby shampoo would. And so that can help with that localized dry spot you may be getting there. What do you think about Anderson's DG products? Are they any different than any other granular products? Yeah, they are different. So the way they typically work is that they're formulated from powders into a dry granule, and then they coat it with like bentonite clay and stuff to give it different release characteristics, right? So yeah, they're good products, but typically where you would need those would be like a golf green or real cut turf that's extremely tight, that when you water it, you need it to go beneath the canopy. You do not need to see it after you water it. You need it to be beneath the canopy. That's why they developed that line, particularly for golf greens. I have some Bermuda creeping into my fescue lawn in 2 different areas. I have bought something from Bayer that seems to sort of work. What's your advice? Should I nuke the whole yard and start over? No, I would probably use something that contains the active ingredient fluazepop to keep it out. If you want to go high dollar, you can mix fluazepop with Pylex or just run Pylex. So there's your 3 options. Connor, no, do not renovate your grass. You cut that out. Ben Truck, I do not have any information about Arden 15 Bermuda grass. I will be paying attention to the NTEP trials to see what's going on with it. I'm sure University of Tennessee is going to be doing some testing with it, and I hope some of the northern guys will be doing some testing with it too. So as more data comes out, we'll check and see. I do know that it is the successor of Princess 77. Princess 77 had some obvious weaknesses, one of them being winter kill, and speed at which it greened up was not as advertised. So while Princess 77 is a really pretty grass, it was only an okay performer. So if I had to guess, if Arden 15 was genetically modified from Princess 77, I would say it would be just a little bit better. It's probably going to perform just like Princess 77, but might do a little bit better in the face of extreme cold or something like that. It's not going to be a complete game changer. It'll be just slightly bit better. Instead of getting winter kill 9 out of 10 winters, it may only get an 8 out of 10 winters kind of deal. Can quinclorac be added to Speed Zone? Yes, it can, and you can go all the way up to the full rate of quinclorac. So that would be 1.5 pounds of material per acre. I have a Bermuda lawn. I need to level some spots so I can mow low without scalping. Topsoil or sand? Sand. Bermuda, sand. Also, what is the lowest you would go with a rotary mower? As low as you can. It just depends on how quickly you want to, how frequently you can cut it. I don't know if you can see my backyard there, but it is incredibly unlevel. And I real mow it, and it's not been leveled at all. It just happens. Then I just cut it. So, but if you're gonna fix Bermuda and level it, always use sand. Do not use topsoil. Topsoil is the biggest scam in the industry right now. I did a video that talks about how to make topsoil out of your own soil, and it is just incredibly frustrating the crap I see people that are marketed to as topsoil that's not topsoil. When should I mow my Bermuda lawn? Also, what height would you cut Bermuda lawn at? Typically, Bermuda, you want to be at less than 1 inch, and you should mow it probably every other day, something like that, unless you're using a growth regulator. You may get away every 3 days or maybe even once a week with growth regulator, but like for instance, my backyard is 0.75 inches and it's mowed 5 times a week. Had to wait through 2 True Green ads. They're coming to get me, Gravelback. They're coming to get me. Tall fescue lawn showing signs of fungus. Put down preventative rate of Scott's disease. How long would it be before I see clear up? And would you suggest cutting shorter to give better airflow? Not necessarily, Justin. I mean, I would just keep doing what you're doing, and typically it has to grow out. So you may put down, and here's the other thing too, you put down a preventative rate because you were showing signs of fungus. If you're seeing signs of fungus, you need to put down the curative rate. And the curative rate, may give you up to 28 days control. So, somewhere around that 24, 25, 26 day range, you need to start preparing to put it down again. And depending on how quickly the grass is growing, so if you're going through a drought and it's not growing real fast, then it's not going to clear up real fast. But if it's chucking out 1 inch a day, you could cut off 1 inch a day, then yeah, it'll clear up within, 3 days to a week, something like that. But yeah. I've had my Bermuda front yard trenched for a new water service line. Turf was looking great before. From suggestions, hey, I appreciate that, Michael Weeks. I appreciate that. Hey, Matt, what does trichoderma do for turf? Trichoderma is a bacteria, and it's going to have, what they claim it does versus what it actually does are probably going to be two different things. The truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, but as far as nitrogen fixing, plant, PRPGs, am I using that right? No, it's PGPRs, plant growth, PGRPs, plant growth rhizobacteria something. It's going to promote those in the plant. So it's going to help fight stress. It's going to help generate higher amounts of organic matter. It's going to help mineralize organic matter. It's got all these different things it does. If you're going to play with it and only apply it once, maybe twice a year. Don't overdo it, because here's the thing. What is trichoderma's natural predators in the lawn? If it doesn't have a sufficient number of natural predators, because you're taking something that doesn't necessarily exist there in that concentration currently in your soil, and you bring it up to that concentration, what's going to keep it regulated? What keeps it from the point of overproducing to the point where your soil is so overloaded with trichoderma that it only has one option, and that's to begin consuming any of the minerals that are in the soil, anything that's oxide or anything that's nitrate, and just to try and stay alive. Because we've seen that happen with some of the bugs in the jugs product, like Organics and similar ones, where people go on full programs year after year after year with it, and by year number 3 they can't get anything to turn green because the bacteria loads in their soils are so freaking high. Why don't the Roundup guys create Roundup ready grass like some farm crops? Because some of the turf grasses would unfortunately turn into resistant, golly, what is it called? Noxious weeds. They would turn into noxious weeds. So, there's some, I remember early on that they were trying to do like some Bermuda grass that was tolerant of Roundup, but the point is that is like, at what point then, what do you have left to kill it? What's going to be left to kill it? I mean, you would have nothing left. And then the rate at which the ALS inhibitors are the weeds are becoming resistant to ALS inhibitors. You wouldn't want to do it to cool season grasses either. So that's probably why. And they did it with St. Augustine purely because St. Augustine is the best-selling grass in the United States. Tahoma 31, Latitude 36, and Tip Top is worried about Bermuda winter kill. Yep. During severe summer heat drought, would light watering be beneficial to keep the crown of the turf-type tall fescue moist? Yes and no. So you can syringe your yard. So do like a midday light watering. And it wouldn't be so much to keep the crown moist, but it would actually have a cooling effect at the canopy of the grass. So Alan did a great video about syringing your lawns and showing, the temperature difference after like 5 minutes of watering during the heat of the day. It dropped, I don't know what it was, 10, 20 degrees, something like that. That is beneficial. Human composting now legal. Other than the obvious, is this actually a good thing for the soil web and plants? Anything? Well, I mean, imagine if we just buried, bodies in the ground. Eventually we would all turn into worm food, right? So, I guess I failed to see where it would not be a good thing. I guess the only thing I could come up with where it wouldn't be a good thing would be depending on the pharmaceutical levels that exist in humans when they die. I've been greatly anticipating buying some carbon X, but I can't find out anything online. Any idea when it'll be available again? Probably middle of this week. I would say it's going to be available again. I use a growth regulator and I still mow every other day. There you go. Kentucky bluegrass seed heads, stem ends turn brown and contrast the lawn. How to prevent or fix? You prevent by going with T-Nex really, really, really early and growth regulate it to the point where you suppress the seed head production. Now it's there, just scalp it. Scalp it out. Take it really, really low. Muddy, compact soil needs to aerate it badly, but want to it with granule or liquids. If you're dealing with muddy, compacted soil like that, that's resisting the penetration of water, you probably need to put a machine on it. Bought some molasses from Kelp for Less. They recommend 1/16 teaspoon per gallon. Does that sound about right for turf? 1 pint per acre. If it came dry like that, I don't know what that rate would be. But 1 pint per acre is typically the going rate. And do not exceed that. Start there and maybe make 2 applications, but do not try and double up and run with that. Tall fescue's laying over, getting tons of rain. Put starter fert Milo apps down. 70, 80 degree days. Illinois areas. Any ideas? Yeah. So I would probably, that would be one of those ones where I would spray it with like a silicone product to try and get it to stand up. If you're getting that much rain, it's probably grayed out skies, not a lot of sunlight to draw the plants to it. The other thing you could do too is maybe like throw some gibberellic acid on it too to try and get it to stand up. Just guessing. Hey, I appreciate that, Joseph. I appreciate that. Temps are between 75 and 80 this week. Can I still use T-Zone to kill white clover and creeping Charlie? Yes. Roundup resistant Bermuda works into Roundup resistant St. Augustine. Yeah, and then what do you do, right? How do you choose rates on herbicides when you roll your own? Do you always run the low rate on the individual chem label or high rate? So it depends on, I make the determination based on the modes of actions that you're going to be seeing. So if it's a PPOI, I know it's always going to be a lower rate of what I mix in because PPOIs pretty much across the board cause damage to all turf grasses. It's a quote-unquote selective herbicide, but it pretty non-selectively damages all turf grass that's sprayed on. Or if it's an ALS inhibitor, and I'm going to be running it with a phenoxy-based product, ALS inhibitors pretty much across the board have broadleaf weed activity, so I would just be using the phenoxy herbicide as a kicker. So how do I choose rates? I choose rates based on the action, the mode of action of the herbicides. Do I always run the low rate? No. High rate? No. It depends on the mode of action. Can you make your Bermuda lawn very green without using any fertilizer or chemicals? Kind of a weird question, but still wanted to ask. Make it very green? No, probably not. How long does it take the sod webworm moths to disappear after spraying them with Bifin XTS? It could take a while because you could have multiple stages that continue to show up. If you're certain they're sod webworm moths, it may be more conducive to you to apply your Bifin XTS with another product like Nylar, which would be an insect growth regulator. So it's going to inhibit the development of larvae into a plant. So it interrupts that growth cycle there. I'm having some chlorosis in my fescue. I'm going to put down some microgreen to boost some of the color. Any other suggestions or products I can add? Typically iron. Iron would be your best bet, but what's most important is that you understand why are you showing chlorosis in your fescue. That is much more of a troubling question than trying to fix it with something that's going to mask the color. Because really all you're doing with something like microgreen, which is, ultra low rates of micronutrients, or something like iron, is that's just putting a Band-Aid out there. And that's licking your thumb and wiping the blood off your skin. You really need to get down to the root of it and figure out what's causing you to bleed. Picking up 1 acre zoysia lawn, how much N should be applied per season? And what's a decent herbicide to run right now? Triggering did a crap job, so there's a lot of weeds and wild violets. So how much N should be applied? It depends on the situation the zoysia's in. I've run anywhere from 2 pounds in on zoysia. I've gone all the way to 6 pounds of in on zoysia. So I can't just tell you over here, over the way, and just say, oh yeah, you put down 3 pounds. I can't tell you that. I have no idea what it looks like. I have no idea what you're starting with. A decent herbicide to run now, it depends on which weeds are going to be present. You say wild violets, I think about this time of year, I would probably blanket spray it with a combination of Celsius and quinclorac. That would be a really good start on getting rid of that wild violet. And if you're dealing with sedges, then maybe I would pull the quinclorac and add in Monument. Run full rate of Monument and full rate of Celsius. And that will get your wild violets, quite a few of your grassy weeds, and also your sedges. What causes tall fescue to lay over? It could be lots of things. If it's overly saturated soil, it's probably due to inefficient nutrient uptake because so much of it has flushed away. If 1 pint per acre of molasses, how much beer do we add? Paul was withholding some of this information in his video. Yeah, you could do beer, or you could actually just go get dormant, get a yeast packet and dump it in there. I mean, that'll work too. But typically, if you're doing a pint per acre of molasses, you probably put like a 6-pack or 12-pack of beer in there. I have Select Iron 1500. Can I apply to boost color, or should I just keep applying Milorganite every 6 weeks? I would not apply Milorganite as your iron source. It has way too much phosphorus. Do not do that. I would apply your Select 1500 for iron because it is just an iron product. Do not apply Milorganite for iron. Thank you, Gene. Paul Manicombe, any big difference between Milo and Ironite other than the NPK numbers? Would Ironite be better in the summer because it has no nitrogen? Yes, but you also have to look at the iron source there. So not a big fan of Ironite either because it has iron oxysulfate, it has iron oxide in it, and iron oxysulfate and iron oxide aren't typically all that plant available unless you have low pH soil. Now, I believe I've seen your soil test, Paul, and You do have lower pH, so ironite would work for you, but I couldn't recommend that to someone in like the Chicago area. My neighbor just laid emerald zoysia down and didn't kill off the Bermuda first. There's nothing to spray that out when it definitely comes back, correct? Yes, you can apply fluazafop. You can apply fluazafop and also phenoxyprop. Both of those are zoysia is very tolerant of, and Bermuda grass is not. So yes, you can spray the Bermuda out of the zoysia, no problem. Real quick, for those that don't do ironite, kids, that's right. And if you haven't, go check out this video right here. We are going to my friend Dan the Man here put together an excellent video talking about the risks that go along with applying ironite. So, no ironite. There you go, unless you want a soil full of arsenic and all kinds of stuff. Don't hear you mention Tribute Total often. Are you not a fan of it? Yes, I am. I'm a big fan of it. There's so much I can do without Tribute Total that I really don't see the need to run it, because everything that's in Tribute Total I can run as different products. Now, I can't roll my own Tribute Total, but I can roll my own Celsius and Revolver if I need to go after the grassy weed portion that you can get out of Tribute Total, or I can run my own sedge combination instead of just relying on Sedgehammer. My big hang up with Tribute Total is that, yes, it's a high rate of Sedgehammer. The rate of Sedgehammer that's in Tribute Total is higher than you can apply, than the label will allow you to apply like something like Sedgehammer. So it's actually like 1.25 the rate of Sedgehammer. So it's good in that sense, but still, Halsafuron has weaknesses in it as an herbicide, as an active ingredient. So yes, I'm a fan of it, but I have more flexibility and more control over using the products that exist in Tribute Total instead of running Tribute Total. Seeded blackjack, Bermuda, and thin spots of a hybrid side yard. Blackjack, well-established color, is still lime green, not nearly as dark as hybrid. Just hit it with Lone Star liquid iron. Any other ideas? Yeah, it's Bermuda seed. It's going to be lime green year one. You're not going to get it dark green no matter what you do. It just doesn't have the root system for it. So, yeah, you can try iron apps and stuff to get it going, but in reality, it just doesn't have the root depth. It doesn't have the plant mass. It's just not going to match up well with sod for at least a year. Wanting to up my weed control game with some commercial products for my St. Augustine. Thinking getting some Celsius and Dismiss NXT. Any other suggestions? I would not get Dismiss NXT would be my suggestion. I would get Celsius. I would get sulfentrazone. I would get carfentrazone. If you can't get carfentrazone, I would get pyroflufen ethyl, also known as octane. If you're dealing with crab goose, Dallas spurs, field matter, and yellow sedge, I would probably go ahead and get some metsulfuron methyl, and I would get some certainty. And I think that would pretty much have you covered for most of what you're going to see on St. Augustine. I want something to make Bermuda stupid green. I mean, badass green. Ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, iron. What else is there, and what ratios? For ultimate color, probably the two things you would want to apply would be ammonium sulfate. Three things would be ammonium sulfate, ferrous sulfate, and manganese sulfate. So ammonium sulfate is going to cause the plant to naturally uptake more iron and manganese. So by applying the three of those, that is how you're going to get your darkest results. Ammonium sulfate, ferrous sulfate, manganese sulfate. Not magnesium sulfate, manganese sulfate. Typically where you are, Melvin, you're not dealing with magnesium deficient soil, so it wouldn't really be all that better. Is it true that the higher you cut your grass, the deeper your roots will grow? I have a tall fescue lawn. Kinda, not really. It has more to do with the frequency of your cut, more so than the height of your cut. The more frequently you cut your grass, the less injury you cause to the plant, the less stress you put the plant under, the deeper your roots will grow. If you cut it infrequently, even if you cut it at 8 inches, but you let it get to 16 inches before you cut it down to 8 inches, then you're going to stress the plant to no end, and it's going to drive all that carbohydrate production back into generating new top growth and ultimately stress the roots out, and you'll get a shallower root system, even though you may still be cutting at 8 inches. Been getting beautiful results on Midnight Kentucky Bluegrass from my new program of spraying 32 ounces per acre of used motor oil. I think it's the extra iron and carbon deposits that make the grass so dark. Sounds about right. Hashtag flip-flop Mo Squad. Got soil test in early spring. Iron was low, 0.024. What is the best way to bring that number up going forward? Mike Morris, probably the best way to bring that number up is just a general rule of thumb. If you're just concerned about the number on your soil test, go get something that contains iron oxide and put it down. It's not very soluble, and it'll show up in your soil test for a really long time. So go get some iron oxide, put it down. There's a product. It's not Tiger Sol. I'm trying to remember who the manufacturer it was. I want to say it was like Carter's or something, and it was iron oxysulfate 50. It's 50% iron, and you can put that out and raise it pretty quickly. Why did you not like Dismiss NXT? Because Dismiss NXT, the cost for what you get is not worth the price, in my opinion. So Dismiss NXT is nothing but a combination of sulfentrazone and carfentrazone. Two products that work very similarly, that are in the same mode of action, and you just combine them, and the result is that you get visual results in 24 hours. Well, that's great. But when you have just sulfentrazone, you get visual results in 48 hours. So you get an extra day of quicker burn down. Does it mean you get additional kill? Probably not. It may appear that you get an additional kill because you burn the leaves off faster, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually getting a better kill. So, in my opinion, if I need something for that fast visual effect, I would like to have the flexibility of adding in the added cost of running carfentrazone with it versus always having that added cost. If you had to put one more product in with T-Nex for Kentucky Bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, what would you pick to help the T-Nex work better or to help the Kentucky Bluegrass spread more? I would put in a low rate of ammonium sulfate and ferrous sulfate. Tahoma 31, Lat 36, and Tiff-Tuff resistant to winter kill. There we go. FYI, seeded in spring with leftover seed, but had to water so much I ended up with Pythian blight. Now the rest of my lawn is in jeopardy. Don't seed in the summer. Yes, do not do that. All right, everybody, we're going to start to wind things down here. For those of you that want to hang out at the show after the show, come check us out over at thelawndiscord.com. It is something between a dad support group and a bunch of lawn freaks that just like talking about lawn stuff all the time. We talk about everything that goes from lawns to children to marriage to being old to being young, plans, vacations, building decks, and all that fun stuff. We have a really good time over there. Come check us out at thelawndiscord.com. You can also find me at thegrassfactor@gmail.com. Shoot your emails over. I may not be able to get to them quickly, but I promise I will get to them at some point. It may take me a week or two. It may take me 3 weeks. I'm not sure. It depends on how crazy things are going, but I will get to them. Or you can meet me over on the Instagram. You can Insta me at The Grass Factor. And last but not least, I hang out at thelawnforum.com. I do not participate a whole lot at thelawnforum.com. I tend to lurk in the background, and I will tell you why. And it's because the community members at thelawnforum.com typically know way more about turfgrass than I do, so I'm there for the learning ride more than anything. So feel free to come hang out. It is definitely the nicest online forum I've ever been a part of. I love the guys there. I think it's fantastic. So show some love and come hang out over at thelawnforum.com or at the real-time 24/7 hangout at thelawndiscord.com. All right, we're going to jump back into the chat here a little. We can get a couple more questions answered. Let's see here. Amaziquin. FYI, oh yeah, we talked about that. Do you have a recommendation for ground leveling? I have heavy clay soil and I've heard sand is a bad idea. That's a myth, Sean Smith. Just cap it with sand. Just bury it with sand right on top. Don't try and incorporate it or any of that, but just bury it with sand right on top. You'll be good to go. Level Bermuda with sand. Backyard is 1,200 square feet, probably 800 feet covered in Bermuda. Best way to get Bermuda to spread out. Weekly, fertilize, monthly, cut more often. All of that. Low rates, and it takes 3 parts. Nutrition, cultural practices, so mowing, and water. Those are going to be the 3 things. The faster you can, if you cut every day, then it's going to spread faster. And make sure the area that it's creeping into has no competition, right? So You may not want it to be completely bare ground, but if you need to kill like a 1 foot stretch at a time so it can grow into there, do that. Because if it's got a lot of competition in there, it's going to slow down on how fast it moves over. So there you go. Man, look at this. The merch store is showing up. Dang firewalls on Fortinet. Man, my goodness, my goodness. All right, everybody, that is going to get it. We are at 10:03. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I had a ton of fun. You should use sand to level your Kentucky bluegrass. And so anyway, thank you for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. I hope everybody learned something tonight. And I will be back next week, Sunday at 9 p.m. at the same station, at the same time, doing the same thing, having a damn good time. All right, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in. Y'all have a great one.